SoFi and stock market investors, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jason. In today's video, I want to break down the top 25 shareholders of SoFi stock. That includes insiders and institutional investors. We're going to break down the top 25, see who's buying, see who's selling, and give you my thoughts on what's happening with SoFi right now in the stock market. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, guys. Let's get into the video. All right, SoFi investors, the stock was up a little bit today, 1.42%. The overall market did pretty good today. In this little Robinhood account, I own 545 shares. And in my big dog account, I own around 6,000 shares. So we're closing in on 7,000 SoFi shares. So we're hoping for some upswings in the stock in the near future. But year to date, SoFi and the rest of the overall financial sector just getting wrecked. I mean, if you take a look at SoFi, down 35%. Even a stock like BX, which is Blackstone, which is one of the biggest investment companies in the world, year to date, they're down almost 30% as well. They're an interesting buy. Even a stock like Bank of America is down considerably year to date, and they're not really growing at all whatsoever. So, and they're still down, closing in on 15% on the year for a company that doesn't really have a lot to offer in the long term, in my opinion. So now we're going to go over to the ownership. This is on Simply Wall Street. I'm not affiliated with them at all whatsoever, but I do like their platform. It's easy to check out and see what's going on with the ownership of SoFi stock. Here are some recent buys over the last couple of months. Eric Schopenhauer bought 5,000 shares at around $20 per share. And then Anthony Noto had two big buys, one of $1 million and the next one for over 500,000. The last time he bought a couple years back, after he bought, the stock was just up and to the right, up and to the right. Maybe it was like 2 years ago when he bought. But yeah, every time he buys, there is some upside in the stock, it seems like. All right, now let's go over the institutional ownership breakdown. Institutions own 53%, the general public 44%, and individual insiders own around 1.5%. Here are the top 25 shareholders of SoFi stock. Number one is Vanguard, coming in at a huge number, 111 million shares. Pretty crazy stuff there, guys. They own about 10% of the company, coming in at 8.7%. They did add to their position 3.64%. Coming in at a close second is BlackRock, owning around 5.5% of the company. They increased their stake by 10%. As you can see, guys, as we look at the top 10 shareholders of SoFi stock, only JP Morgan is trimming up their stake at 26.2% decrease in their institutional ownership. But D.E. Shaw owns, closing in on 40 million shares. I mean, so does JP Morgan. They still own about 40 million shares. Norges Bank, Susquehanna, and then Anthony Noto here owns 11.7 million shares of SoFi stock. Woo, baby, that is a big number. And then Citadel, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, among others. Bank of America increased their stake a smidge. And then Morgan Stanley really went big, adding 40% to their position. And Citadel increased their position by 234%. Good stuff here, guys. And some of the ones in the 20s, JP Morgan Chase decreased theirs. Voleridge Investment Management increased their stake as well. BMO Asset Management increased their stake. And Wells Fargo increased their stake to around 10%. So in order to get in the top 25 overall shareholders of this company, you have to own over 5 million shares. And eventually I want to see the top 25 all over 10 million shares owned. So right now the top 25 shareholders own about 40% of the company. That's a huge number. That is a big time number. And these numbers are pretty up to date. Not as up to date as a website like Fintel. Here it says 53.7%. If we go on Fintel, it's at 55.89%. and with 700 million shares owned by institutions. I like Fintel because it also shows different strategies like calls and puts for these different institutions. Kind of get an idea the difference between the call and put ratios here. The line is the share price, and then these bar charts are the different types of historical put and call ratio between calls and puts there for us here for SoFi stock. But I love this number, the institutional ownership bar chart. The faint line graph shows where we're right around that $17, $18 range, but we've seen institutional ownership since late 2023 just up and to the right. They're just buying and buying and buying. We're at all-time institutional ownership highs, over 700,000 shares owned by institutions. That's a big number. And we're, closing in on around 56% owned by institutions overall. I don't think anyone bought today. I can check on the dates right here for us. And the last buys that we got were March 16th. That was like the last institutional buys. There was a lot of buying going on in February. I think a lot of these huge institutions were rebalancing in February because there was a lot of action going on. And as we could see, February was extremely busy for SoFi stock institutional ownership wise. So that's always a good thing to know as you own SoFi stock over time. So there's buying and selling. It's not just buying. So there's a lot of repositioning in these portfolios. So February is a big, busy month. I mean, I'm still scrolling down. January, pretty busy as well. And now that we're in March, guys, we've seen a huge decrease in buying and selling of SoFi stock. Not much happening at all. There's no real selling happening right now that I've seen. Just a lot of buying. And then we could see the increases in new institutions buying the stock. The news are in green, new positions. And the percent value here, negative would be a trimming of the position and positive would be adding to their position. So overall, I'm happy with where SoFi stock is institutional ownership wise. 1,124 total institutional owners. 1,069 are long only, 13 are short only, and 42 are straddling both long and short positions. So what am I doing with my SoFi shares right now? I'm continuing to nibble away under $20 per share. I do think that long term we will be happy with buying under 20 bucks per share. I'm also doing some covered calls with SoFi stock. As you can see, I'll show you some of my calls. I got a $19 call for Friday, got an $18 call for next Friday, $20 call in about 3 weeks from now. And here are some other options I have. I have a $30 call with DraftKings. And these are all covered calls and cash secured puts. I got the $13 put with CleanSpark, and that's underwater right now. I have the $15 put in May for SoFi. I got a $20 call in June. And then every once in a while, I'll take 100 of my shares and go out really far. So I have a $20 call in June of 2028. And I got, I think, around $900 for that. It's worth $600 now, so I'm up on it considerably. So that's around $1,000 I got for this option. And that means my break-even price is around $30 per share. This is just some of the shares I have in this one little baby account. I'm starting to buy some shares in Microsoft. This is like a dividend-only portfolio for the most part. I have QYLD, JEPQ, QQQI, and then I'm starting to add some shares. When I sell my covered calls, I'll buy some SoFi stock, I'll buy some DraftKings, I'll buy some Microsoft, some Nike. And I'm going to build out those positions over time. And I'm just tracking Solana. It's one of my favorite cryptocurrencies. But I do think that this ownership is very telling of where SoFi could potentially go. Just look at all these giant institutions adding to their positions. If we take a look at the top 10 or 12 shareholders, there's only one trimming their position. So that's great for us moving forward. The rest of them, like 15 through 25, we see a mix of buying and selling. Jane Street Group has been the biggest seller of the stock at 47% in the bottom, 10 of the 25. And then JP Morgan Chase, they've been selling some shares as well. So they have JP Morgan Asset Management and then JP Morgan Chase, that's the bank, and this is the investment group up there. So I am happy what's going on with SoFi stock institutional ownership wise. I would like to see this number get to about 750,000 and then bump this closer to 60%. I think once we get in at 60% and start to shake out some of these retail investors that are just trying to swing it for earnings, usually as we get closer to earnings, we'll see a lot of institutional owners not really buy so much, but we will see the retail investors start to buy and kind of swing trade it and hope that it runs on earnings and then dump the shares right after the earnings. This is the trading trends on Robinhood. We see retail is selling the shares. There are just, especially on that short report that came out, we see them all dumping their shares. And we could probably see the opposite going on with hedge funds and insiders. So insider buying is huge right now compared to selling. And most of the selling is stock that was earned by those people in management positions that are just selling for their salary. But hedge funds are out buying the sellers, and insiders are out buying the sellers. And then Robinhood retail traders are selling and not buying. So to me, that just shows how inexperienced traders of SoFi stock just don't really know what the hell they're doing. If this isn't like the most glaring bar chart, I don't know what is. So retail is selling. Hedge funds are adding. Insiders are adding. They're buying your cheap shares, retail investors. So take note of these charts on Robinhood. They're very useful. And as you can see, Robinhood, they want to buy when the stock is shooting up, and then they want to sell when the stock is shooting down. It should be the opposite. When the retail should be buying these shares on the cheap and then selling them when they're up high. But unfortunately, that's not what retail traders do, and that's why a lot of retail traders go broke in the end. But hedge funds, experienced hedge funds, are out buying 61% to 39%, and insiders 84% to 16%. So there it is, guys. There are the top 25 shareholders of SoFi, led by Vanguard Group and BlackRock, who own closing in on 14% of the company. And Anthony Noto bought considerably over the last couple of weeks, adding 1.5 million shares, closing in on 100,000 shares bought by Anthony Noto. I just wanted to give you guys a quick update. If you like these updates, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much. Peace.